Well, did he work through the war then in the mines? Is that
Never
what he,
missed a shift.
what mines did he work in?
Right over there.
The Mountain Con?
Yeah.
And what was his job, as a miner or?
Special repairs at the end. He was, when they had big cave in general, like he said, you could put the Finland Hotel in some of them caves when them stopes and that's flopped. They'd go in and start catching it up, bringing it back. Him and John McGrady. I'd say something about John McGrady, but you got that thing on.
Well, now what about his brother? What did he do for most of his life?
He died at 1940.
From what?
Well, like I say, I don't like to say
Okay,
it.
well, so
He died of a broken heart, let's put it that way.
Okay.
Which he also had pneumonia and he died, but he only, 1940 he died.
But your dad managed to work his whole life in the mines without being killed or dying of silicosis.
No, he died of silicosis, that's what
did
he
he?
died of, yeah.
How old was he when he died?
He was about, let's see, he died in February the 24th. His birthday would have been April the 16th, he would have been 62. But my mom died 1964. She was only 64 years old. My sister Elaine died in 1983. She was only 63 years old. My sister had both breasts and her leg amputated for cancer before she died. That's Mike and Pat and Giovan's mom. I'm the only one that made 65. My young sister is yet, she was only 62 years. I'm 13 years older than Eldine, my sister, the other sister. My oldest sister was 4 years older than me. She was born in 1920, I was born in 24. Eldine was born in 1937. But my dad, he believed there was no place in the world like the United States of America. He was the proudest person in this world to be an American citizen. Not only him, but his brothers and sisters, they all came here. I never saw anybody when I was a kid, and this whole neighborhood came from the old country. There was everybody. I don't remember anybody that was born in Centerville. They were all, parents were from the old country, be it Ireland, England, wherever. But up here was all Irish and English. Tushy McLean, the Scotchman down on Missoula Avenue, and what do you call it, up there, McLeod, Stan McLeod on the East Center Street. His parents were from Scotland. Right below the tracks, on the other side of Corrigan's, or the Barnacle Flats, was Lockery's. They were both right from Scotland. I couldn't understand a word his mother said when we were kids. She just talked with the brogue you couldn't believe. Then over and down in the hole was Bangor Harris and Mrs. Angle, and they were both English on it. Well, their cousin Jack Hollow, or whatever you want to call it, but everybody. Next door neighbor, Bitter Rogers, Mrs. Rogers. Mrs. Rogers' parents were from England. Bitter Rogers' parents were from Ireland. My Aunt Marie, my mom's oldest sister, lived in the house straight ahead there. My Uncle Pete, he was from Ireland. He came over from the old country. My Uncle John Larry, who lived right up on top of the hill up there, that one house that sits where you fell down, my Aunt Marie Eva's house, that's my mom's oldest brother. They had another brother, they had a brother Ralph, who was adopted. My Uncle Mike, my grandfather Mike, brother died during the influenza. He died and his wife died in the influenza, and they had one son by the name of Ralph. My uncle, or my grandfather, Michael Larry, took him in. So he was an adopted brother, just like they just took him in and they raised him. And he lived down on South Wyoming Street in about the 700 block on South Wyoming. And then his boy, Billy Larry, lives in Helena, and had a lot to do with the, I don't know, it was Blue Cross or one of them. He was with the medical plan anyway. He still lives in Helena. And that's the other side, that's,
Well, did all these families from the old country, did they get along okay here?
oh yeah, we used to have, you couldn't believe when we were kids, Friday nights, after the 34th strike, when they got the days off, they'd come here, my Uncle Pat, my Uncle Din, my Aunt Maggie, Aunt Kate, they'd come here. And all the kids would come. And we'd play, when they played Pedro or whist, cards. And my mom would make a lunch, It was great. Kate was a great tea leaf reader. The stove always had the hot water kettle on there. And they always made the tea. The water had to be jumping out of the top of the kettle. That's how hot they had to have it for the tea. They put the tea leaves right in the cup and poured the water in over the top, boiling hot. But you always had to have a saucer. Because when the tea was gone, turn the cup upside down. And then they'd wait. And then they'd turn it over. And the tea leaves would be on the sides of the cup. And then my Aunt Kate would tell the fortunes. It took us quite a few years until we realized when they said, "Oh, I see he's right here. Mrs. O'Brien is going on a vacation." Yeah, you found out about maybe 2 months later, Mrs. O'Brien had a baby. That's the way. But it was great. Then, right down there on Montana Street, right off on Agate, the first house on Agate, was my Uncle Jury. He was a great Uncle Jury. He got wounded in World War I, and he had that crippled hand. His right hand was crippled, or left hand was crippled. Anyway, his wife, her name was Mary Healy. And they called her Big Mary. I mean, she was big. Oh, she was a big lady. Well, we'd go down there, see. Then my Aunt Nora from Woolman Street and my Uncle George Dudley, they'd come up there. And my Aunt Maggie and my Uncle Patsy O'Leary'd come over from their house at Well 12. And they'd all sit down and play the cards again, and all the kids would be there. And the same thing, they'd play the cards and having the tea. Well, around this time of the year, my Aunt Mary we'd all go down there. And she says the candy came from Ireland. Oh, we thought that was great, the candy come from Ireland. She'd get the big bag out, the big box out, and she'd pull a bunch of this green stuff out, and she'd put it in a little bag for you. Here's the candy. It's called Mewa. Now remember that word, Mewa. Okay. Everybody got their share, and get loaded up, and boy, you could spit from here to the stove over there. Salty? Oh man, it was salty. And it had a bluish green, purplish green tint to the leaves we were chewing. It's Irish candy. I was about 15 or 16 years old, and I said to my dad, "Dad, I gotta ask you a question." Yeah, he said, "What's that?" I said, "The Mewa we're chewing. Is that seaweed?" He said, "It took you a long time to find out," he said, "but that's what it is." He said, "It's not actually seaweed, it is real kelp, grown right by the shores, there where they used to go fishing. And I guess it's a great thing, they shipped it all over the world. But it was a spring tonic. Clean you out, I'll tell you." But we all got the candy.
Well, did the Irish families and the Cornish families mix much together? Do things together?
Let's put it this way. That house over there was where Mr. and Mrs. Hill lived. They were left England and went to Brazil because the mines in Cornwall went down the same time the mines in the west of Ireland went down. So they went to South America. But Mrs. Hill's sister lived upstairs in Barnacles Flats, and her name was Higginbottom. So they came to Butte to visit her, and he was a miner from the old country. Well, he thought this field was the greatest place in the world. So they stayed and made application. Now the oldest girl, Kathy Hill, who lives right up on Center Street, was born in Brazil. Eric, who was a ropeman with me, was born right over there. But they stayed. Now my dad always said that Jimmy Hill was a white cousin Jack. That's a compliment. He was really a well-liked, but they got along together. And as kids, what's the difference? I mean,
Yeah.
I always thought the Methodist church and the Blade School was where the Protestants went to the Methodists, and St. Lawrence's was where the Catholics went.
Well, who lived next door here? We have the parking lot now.
There was a bar,
What was it called?
the Eagle.
The Eagle.
My dad and I tore it down. When he bought Billy McCrone and my dad, Bill McCrone lived over there, he was a constable. He also ran the Big Butte Tavern. But him and my dad and them, they bought that lot, and my dad lived here and Billy lived over there. But they bought that lot there, and the bar was still in there. The guy that owned the bar, his name was McNeilis, and he sold the building to my dad and to Billy McCrone. To this day, when we were little, my dad had some friends, Harringtons, from the old country that lived in Stevensville. So when he got one of his first vacations in the 30s, maybe 1934, 35, we got on the train and went to Missoula. And then from Missoula we rode one of them old buses to Stevensville. And the guy, Harrington's owned a ranch there. And we stayed there for a week. Well, when we come back, somebody had broke into the bar and smashed the whole back of the bar was glass. You should have seen it. Oh, it was beautiful. Well, they took the bar and they took all the back part of the bar and they sold it. My dad and Billy McCrone sold it because it was no good to them. Do you know where the 5 Mile is?
Yeah.
Well, you let's take a look at the back one. That's room right there.
That was from the Eagle here? Is that right?
And then my dad, they decided to tear it down because it would have got burned down anyway. So him and I tore that whole building down.
In the 30s, or? So this has been a parking lot for years then?
Yeah, yeah. And then I finally got it paved. But